in the evening of 24th, we have Святвечір, Свята Вечеря, like holy dinner, when all the family gathers together and we have 12 dishes and like all the family celebrates. And it's time when starts Kolyada, like the time of caroling, when people go with like a little masquerade and they go and sing carols. And the people who do it, they also have Christmas star. And today I propose you, those who have inspiration, to draw this star. And yes, I will start from tell it from the start. So this star, it's like a symbol of Bethlehem star that told us about Christ that was born, and three kings came watching on this light. And carolers, when they go and sing, they also have this star with them on a stick. So I drew like everyone can draw, but usually it's big shiny star, maybe with a candle inside, but we can draw like on paper with colored pencils. So I propose 3 forms. Usually this star has 8 horns, like 1, 2, 3, 8. And also, those who saw previous feminist workshop, there was it was about embroidery. I mean, my part was about embroidery, and many people were drawing alatyr, this star that is very hard to draw. So you can try to draw this form of the star, and like one more star, and it's if you like this form, it's quite easy to draw. Like you make a cross, one more, and then you like unite these pieces, and you can make them colored. So I mean, everyone, while listening to serious discussion, you may like listen to serious things, but at the same time, you can draw and like a bit emotionally relax while drawing.
Feminist Workshop has been having these conversations online since last year, and we started off by having cooking as the activity that we would do while we would have discussions around feminist topics. And then we decided to switch to using crafts and drawings and paintings. So Victoria, who's the amazing artist who is leading us in this part, just explained what we're going to be drawing. And then throughout the conversation, she will also explain a little bit more. I would like to tell you a little bit about our speakers, the topic, Feminist Workshop, and also myself. I'm Maryna. I've been moderating Feminist Kitchen events since last year. I'm a feminist queer activist from Armenia. And Feminist Workshop invited me to moderate these discussions, and I was happy to do so. Feminist Workshop, just a little bit about Feminist Workshop for those who don't know, was founded in 2014 by activists and feminists. And they aim to create a space for the development of the feminist community in Lviv and Ukraine. And mainly their focus is on gender and feminist education, the creation, support, and development of the feminist community, and building a network that would unite different leaders and city institutions in order to bring feminist values to life. Since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Feminist Workshop has widened the range of its activities. So there's a bunch of different things that Feminist Workshop has been doing in the past 2 years, like babysitting, helping with accommodation, elderly care, psychological support for the community, operating a shelter, and more. So the organization continuously adapts to the changing context as a result of the full-scale invasion. And these conversations are also informed by these changes in the context. So today, what we're going to be discussing, well, the topic is Feminist Voices of Ukraine and Nagorno-Karabakh, exploring shared struggles and building international solidarity. And we have 4 amazing speakers today. I will start off with the amazing Ukrainian artistic and curatorial duo called Nazva, zmінна, variable name, which is made up of Valerie, Karpan, and Maryna, Marinichenko. from Ukraine, and we have a speaker from Armenia, Knarik Mkrtchyan, who's the co-founder of Women's Agenda NGO. She's also a peace advocate and a women, peace, and security agenda expert. And finally, we have Liza Matevosyan, who's the co-founder of Women's Center Shushi. It's an NGO. And it works with human rights activists from Nagorno-Karabakh. She's herself a human rights activist from Nagorno-Karabakh and displaced from Shushi. So I'm going to start off with our first question, and I'm going to ask this. I'm going to start off with Maryna from Nazva, zmінна, and then the other speakers are also going to have a chance to answer this question. So we know that the importance of language in articulating our experiences in conflict zones. So the first question is with regards to language and how it's important. How can we how can we understand the relevance of different ways or different words that we use to describe what's happening and our experiences? So I will start off with Maryna. Please, you can go ahead.
Yeah, preparing for this meeting, we already had a bit of a discussion about this topic, and actually it's one of the topics that we talk a lot, like at least recently, of course, and not only about language as a way to invent some new vocabulary or to adjust vocabularies that already exist to somehow describe the political and social situation we are now in, but also it's very connected to some particular languages. So in case of Ukraine, for example, of course, it is like an issue of somehow departing from Russian language as something imposed on us as the language of international communication with other communities. So we now try to at least draft some other ways of speaking about it. It is not only like Russian language as, as a language of the family of languages, but also the way, like the post-Soviet way of calling things, like special vocabularies that are largely informed by that tradition. Yeah, and in this respect, we do a lot of unlearning, actually, critically examining the terminologies that we have and critically thinking about what we can do about the usage of the Russian language as a language. Because, for example, like my personal experience, I'm from the region which was in the 60s made mostly Russian speaking. And for me, it was not an issue at all. Like this bilingualism from birth was. But with the full-scale invasion and with the situation of being mostly outside Ukraine, it appeared to me very important to connect and to speak about the topics that I want to speak in a proper language, which is not Russian, because Russian is very problematic in this respect. And as I started to switch more and more in different aspects of life to Ukrainian, I also understood that some terminologies do not work anymore to describe certain situations. So, and at the same time, I started to dive into the history of my family, and I started to have some conversations like with my family who actually are from the southern Ukraine. And for example, like my father was Ukrainian speaking before he's like 10 years old, and after that he was made Russian speaking if he wanted to enter the university. And then he was like trying to examine like what was behind my decision to go back to Ukrainian language. So it's like this switching situation with language is a very interesting process to understand, like to understand even the switch of your paradigm, the switch of the focus of your attention as an individual, as an activist, as a person. Yeah.
From another side, there is issue of glossary and a lot of like dictionary, and like during these 2 years and even before, a lot of initiatives appear which are working on rewriting the meaning of decolonial glossary, and we are now like becoming the part of this initiative. So yeah, there is a lot of work which have to be done. So this question is like now important as never before for us.
It's very interesting for me to hear about this sort of the issues with language that you're discussing, because I mean, I'm going to give the word to Liza, who's from Nagorno-Karabakh herself, but like over 30 years ago, the people of Nagorno-Karabakh were struggling to be able to maintain their language, actually, and that was one of the kind of reasons that the conflict also started, not the only one. I'll give the word to Liza, and I will ask you to, maybe you can give a little bit of the context also, yeah, and then you can also answer the question on language.
Thank you, Milena, and Valerie and Maryna. As Milena mentioned, I'm from Nagorno-Karabakh, so I know the whole problem from inside, not outside, and I would like to give you a little bit about our context, because for many people, our conflict seems like only territorial issues, but for us, for people who live in Nagorno-Karabakh, it's not only about the land, it's about our identity. So started from 1990s, we have war, but before that we have escalation of our relations with Azerbaijani, because in Soviet Union time we have some problems when Armenian schools are closed. In high-level positions, always choose the Azerbaijani people, and in lower position always will Armenian, and they have to do all the work. So this is the main problems that we struggle in so many years in Soviet Union time. And after that, when Soviet Union started to collapse, as an autonomous region from Nagorno-Karabakh, we decided to be independent country, and we start our movement. And after that, we have 90s war. After that, we have a ceasefire, but it's not the end of conflict. So we struggle so many times in 30 years. So we have escalation that in 2016, we call it 4-day war also. For us, it's war, but it's escalation for other people. And after that, the main and the biggest issue, date is war in 2020. After that, I am displaced. So after that, Shushi and other regions become the Azerbaijani control. So we have so many people displaced and so many victims because of that war. And after that, the Azerbaijani side wanted to clean that land from Armenians, and we have almost 10 months blockade situation, if you know about that. And the last, I hope, escalation was in 2023 September, when they start the attack. And because of that, all people from Nagorno-Karabakh, it's about 115,000 people, they leave their homes, and now they are all displaced, and they mostly based in Armenia. So based on this context, I want to answer the question about the language, because for us from inside, we used to use the words that meaning winning side. We always, after 90s, we say we win, we have this liberty, but it's not actual liberty, because we don't have this peaceful agreement. But now in after 2023 escalation, the Azerbaijani sides use these words. So focused on the language, I can say each part use the words that more acceptable for him and acceptable for people who live there. So it will be more understanding for the people. But we as activists, we understand the difference, and we also trying to help the situation, trying to see the whole problem, whole issue beyond of that words.
I will give the word to Knarik if you have anything to add.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I really can't help myself saying that it's such an interesting format and, you know, engaging and formal kind of discussion and through art, really building this trust among the group, even though we are online. So it's a huge pleasure to be here, and thank you for organizing and bringing us together for this very important discussion. It was very interesting, even the comparison with Ukrainian case and with our case, because exactly as well mentioned, when it comes to the invasion of Ukraine, we really talk really about the languages like Russian, Ukrainian, or maybe Armenian, Azerbaijani, I don't know. In our case, the situation is a bit different because it's more about terminology and what types of words we are using to describe different things. And again, coming to different terminologies, the conflict itself, when we are starting describing the conflict, the biggest, dilemma and all-time discussion topic was how we are calling the conflict, whether it's Armenian-Azerbaijani conflict, whether it's Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, because it sounds quite, basic, or what's the difference? But if we call it just Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, like naming countries only, then there is a huge discrimination, and obviously discrimination towards Nagorno-Karabakh, and not recognizing Nagorno-Karabakh as a conflicting site. Why I brought this example, just to show how politicized even these words are, and how we long time underwent this struggle of really finding the right words to describe the conflict in a conflict sensitive way, not harming the process, especially the peace building process, because both Liza and I, we are still part of these peace building processes, cross-border dialogue with the Azerbaijani side, and it is a huge struggle basically to really keep the neutrality, but meantime being able to tell about your side of the story in a way that also recognizes the human dimension of the conflict. And why I am raising the issue of human dimension, because interestingly, all these conflict discussions and languages and everything that has been used during these 30+ years while describing Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, if you sit and analyze those words used by experts, mostly male experts, obviously because of the patriarchal system, you will see that human dimension has the smallest percentage in this discussions around the conflict, how people are, whether they consider the situation and the needs of people, even from the language point of view. Several different developments happened after the second Nagorno-Karabakh war, and especially after this last year September escalation, because what is really interesting again in this language preferences is whether we are using the word, as also mentioned by Liza, conflict or war, escalation or war. This is also something very important, because in many cases it was called an escalation when the locals really wanted to call it a war, because an escalation is let's say in brackets a normal situation that becomes worse, but nothing new happens. But the war is something new, and there is a responsible side who triggered it, or who failed to prevent the war, etc. So you will see there are very big differences in even this wording. And recently, ethnic cleansing, or let's say forced displacement, these are wildly discussed words that are either rejected or accepted by different parties, whether international community or national organizations or cross-border dialogue, because many people, for example, don't acknowledge it as a forced displacement, calling it voluntarily displacement. And there isn't a need to explain why we call it forced displacement, because of many human rights were violated during the blockade. No one took care after people's basic needs to education, electricity, water supplies, bread, and even housing, because it was at some point already unsafe to stay in the house and people just went outside. So these multiple examples are showing how complicated the situation with the language is. And obviously also when it comes to the international community, again, it was somehow disappointing from the angle of expectations, what type of wording the international community is using. Because, for example, when the blockade started, international community especially was calling it as a situation that had the potential to lead to humanitarian crisis. So you see the differences. They didn't call it a humanitarian crisis, but called a situation that had the potential to lead to humanitarian crisis. So in our case, these language differences and how we understand the wording and when we use what, this is how it is more understood, and this is what is more relevant for our context. We'll start here and look forward to your other questions, Maryna. Thank you.
My second question, I was thinking that this is an important question for me because during the 2020 44-day war of Nagorno-Karabakh, I was completely transformed, like not willingly, just something that happens when you are living in a context and experiencing such tragedy, actually. So this was a question that I had to all of our speakers about what have you learned from the experiences of these conflicts and how has it reshaped your views and your activist vision?
All I can also say about some transformation which is close to the my body, for example, because even these bodily reactions on the representation of speaking, public speaking, it's influenced the way I'm acting. And for example, when we were discussing this event and we were talking about the importance to present our own experience, but our own experience right now, to talk from ourselves, but also as representatives of Ukraine, it's actually something which unconsciously influenced the way I'm speaking, for example. And the same when we're choosing again, when we speak about the language, and when I in public sphere, for example, hear Russian language, it's something which can influence me, and I can feel actually physical pain sometime. And in this way, when we're coming back to this issue of language, it's important to find the ways where everyone will be comfortable with. So actually this I think that this state of body and also this circumstances which structure the way we are performed as an artist. I of course feel that it's influenced the practice, but also because the topic I'm working with as an artist, but also as a scholar researcher, are connected to the geography and also borders and pre-border cities. Now focused on these dramatic changes which are unrolling right now with full-scale invasion, but also with the changes, political changes, and changes of identity, not only in Ukraine. But also in the same way, while I spoke to people who are now live in Ukraine, for example, in pre-border cities, it's really hard to extract their honest thoughts about their memory. And also I can think about myself as well, because now people trying to rethink and transform their identity and the way they think about even their past.
I also want to start with personal learnings that are very much connected, also those that are more external, more connected to my activism and professional life, etc. So it was kind of a very hard task to keep this do no harm principle and continue working with this principle, because this being affected by this many information, which are most of the times are manipulative, misinformation or disinformation, and very hard to understand what is the truth and what is the real, the false. And it was somehow hard task to really being able to still keep seeing the different sides of the coin and really take into consideration the truth, so-called truth of the other side. So there was quite a hard task, and especially in a time when whether you want or not, but information or I don't know, propaganda or overall chaos and this overall fear, it touches you and it also makes you very emotional, and sometimes you lose your logical ability to really be logical rather than illogical. So there was quite a hard task, but a good learning that we could still keep this do no harm principle. And a good learning was that rather doing nothing than doing something that can damage ourselves, the process, and the others across the border. Because yeah, despite everything, it's important to think about those who are suffering because of the conflict from the other side of the conflict. The second thing is that I became more critical towards the work that I have been doing, I have been engaged in, and what was happening around me, to also acknowledging how failed our internal agendas were. I'm not talking about Armenian, Azerbaijani ones, but those that are purely Armenian, purely related to our civil society organizations, individual activists, etc., all the failures. And the first one that I understood and learned is that we really failed to share with each other's expectations, what to expect from each other in case of emergencies or in case of something changes, whether good or bad. So setting our expectations towards ourselves, towards each other, towards international community, and towards Azerbaijanis. That was another learning that I actually had. The other thing that I want to say, that unfortunately I understood that not only us as civil society, but also different communities were not prepared for emergency settings. As a nation, or as a, I don't know, as a country, or all sides of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict would never believe that we would have a war that would last more than 4 or 5 days. That was another failure of expectations and another failure of analysis and risk assessment. And this 44-day war was a real shock for everyone and a very, very huge disappointment. And if we are talking about peace building communities and personal disappointments, it also caused a huge disappointment, because there was a feeling that we are ready to like peace or work towards peace in times of peace, but in times of, you know, violence and conflict, we kind of failed, and we forgot that peace builders, or we, if we have some beliefs, should be ready for these types of emergencies too. So there was also a very huge learning. And one thing that a good learning, that was we failed to define words. We call ourselves peace builders, activists, advocates. We want peace, but what is peace? We made it very personal and very vague and somehow very, you know, romantic, by really we romanticized peace, and we skipped defining it. And in the end of the day, it turned out that we had different visions of peace. For someone, there was territorial integrity. For someone, it was independence. For someone, it was unification. So there was also another layer of failure of really communicating with each other and talking about conflict. And you know, there are too many learnings basically, but one thing that I understood, and I can't not say this because as a female, yeah, as a woman, let's say, if I can say it in this way, that we also failed in making us stronger by sometimes silencing each other, by not believing in our expertise and experiences, and not valuing our experiences, whether we are talking about expert women, whether we are talking about those women who were under direct control of the war and who were the wives of the conflict by taking care after the consequences of the war, but not being acknowledged as those who were affected by the conflict and who are actors that can actually change something positively, obviously. And I'm not considering war as an option to the solution, but I mean, there were lots of learnings. Of course, all the things that I mentioned are kind of a sad, because all these are the reasons of failing to prevent a war and escalations, etc. But meantime, these are also these understandings also good opportunities to build our strategies and actions differently. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Knarik. So it's connected to language as well, but like when you were asking the question, like, what is peace? I mean, yeah, it can be, yeah, it's about how you define it.
Literally, in the first days of war, it was impossible for me to donate for weapon. It was just against my values. But then, gradually, with like war crimes, with understanding of what we are facing and what could be the possible tools of immediate reaction on it, and what could be the possible tools of like thinking about it, you would choose to immediately react, because it's something that can, you know, in the very short term, you need to prevent like a very large scale catastrophe. And then, like, what can be the tools of peace? I don't know, like to support the peace. But also in the long run, it's very problematic that we need to go with all these violent strategies to keep defending ourselves. And it's always like thinking about what other strategies can we turn to. But also, I guess that one of the biggest learnings from the first days of war, which still is like, it didn't change a bit. It was like, first we thought that this international solidarity to stop this war from happening can actually include some Russian voices. But it was very fast that we understood that that would never happen, even within the community. For example, in our professional field, which is artistic, nothing happened. And now when you see some other military conflicts and wars, and that international community of the perpetrator land can actually be vocal about like their disagreement, for example, like, I don't know, Israeli-Palestina case and Israeli diaspora making rallies everywhere saying like, not in our name and whatever, but not a single Russian did it. So it was very eye-opening. And I guess for many colleagues, it was a moment when we abandoned this idea that our peace-building strategies can actually rely on any dialogue. Something that is on our mind now is just leave Russian decolonization to Russians and to local activists, with which the solidarity is, I mean, the nations inside Russian Federation that are trying to build their own local resistance in whatever scale they can. Yeah, this can work, but now with Russians.
When we are raising, we have these words, bad words about Azerbaijani and Turkey. We seem them similar. So we also call Azerbaijanis Turk, which means Turkeys. I don't have hate against Azerbaijani, but I have hate against the Azerbaijani government. So in my life and in my perspective of peace building work, I always teach other people, don't hate people, hate the regime that make people do some bad things. The war time, it was the time when I really started to think about peace. What is peace for me? So actually it is different. Also in our family, it's different for me and different for my mother and brothers. It's really different. And how we can speak about peace in huge level, in big level, when you cannot have this peace in small group. So my suggestion is speak more and speak more like with children. When you speak more understandable language, when you explain everything very clearly and very simple.
Victoria, I would like to give you the word and see if there's, actually I have questions for you. As always, I want to know about the colors, if there's anything specific things with colors with the Christmas star. And you also showed us a few different types of stars. I'm curious, and they have different kind of geometrical shapes. So I'm wondering about the geometrical like symbolism, if there is any, and anything else you want to mention about this process.
So thank you for the questions. As I understood while reading about these Christmas stars, people have freedom. Like everyone who makes this star, they do any stars, any sizes, from any materials. Like the main idea is it must be big on a stick, it must be noticeable. So the person who has it in his hands, he's proud of doing it. And usually it is used something like the most bright, the most shiny, like maybe foil from the kitchen, or like something like golden. And some people even add like how's it, flashlights, so it's very bright. Well, I think while drawing, we don't do this special effects, but we also can choose the most bright colors we have. About geometry, as I understand, like how's it, well known is right this alatir, that means and the like universe and unity of male and female energy. So it's very symbolic. About like usual just round with horns, I didn't see any like specific information. Also, when this star is made, we draw it on just on a paper, like a small thing. Usually when the stars are made, they are made not like a flat drawing, but made of cardboard. So it has its form. It's like 3D. Yes, that's why I will show. Like often on drawings, these horns are divided because they are folded. So this real star, it has its form and it's very noticeable. And there is a parade of Christmas stars in Ukraine, sometimes maybe in Lviv region, and like there go a lot of people with a lot of different stars. So they're all different because there are no like very strict rules. So people decorate them with ribbons, with bells, with everything. So what you have, what you want, you can add. And sometimes also people add to the center, add icons. So like how you see it, that you do. Maybe something else about, and about colors, I guess, I mean, I didn't see anything special about stars, but I guess it can be similar as in Ukrainian traditional embroidery, when red is life, green is prosperity and growing, like blue is water and female energy, white is virginity, purity. And for example, I didn't, while watching different stars, I didn't see using a lot of black color because like usually black is like very serious and about tragedy often, or about earth. So I didn't see black stars at all, just golden, silver, red, yellow, and everything. And all these colors are usually combined as the person making wants to see it.
I have a very short question to Liza and Knarik. What do you think about the role of Russia in Karabakh conflict?
So, you know, after 2020 war, we have Russian peacekeepers in region, and we, as a people living in Nagorno-Karabakh, we hope that we don't see other war in region because of peacekeepers. But you saw 2023 and they don't do anything. And from my own perspective, I really blame them, and they want to this conflict to be still, and they want to this conflict to be continued, and they have the opportunity to be in region.
And unfortunately, I really have to go back to the first Nagorno-Karabakh war, and really I want to mark that my personal belief and analysis made me quite determined that Russia's role was always very destructive in this war, because more than Russia, no one was interested in finding some method to be present in the region, because it actually didn't have any, any place, or it wasn't that strong actor right after the Soviet Union collapsed. So there was kind of a good reasoning for them to be part of this. But this is not only fueling the conflict from the beginning, but how Russia behaved during, these 30+ years. Because if we are looking at other countries, for example, France or United States, even though, for example, United States was supporting countries like Azerbaijan or Armenia with money to enhance our military capacity, but Russia was those who was selling weaponry to Armenian and Azerbaijani sides. And basically, it was very interesting also to see how analysts are analyzing, like military analysts are analyzing the types of weaponry, because for Armenian side, that was always protective, like weaponry to protect, and for Azerbaijan, it was weaponry to attack. I don't know whether this is true or not, but that was the reality. And also, there is a saying that the bigger the number of interests, the harder the negotiation process is, because there is a clash of interests, obviously. And Russia was the one who was using this to, especially if we are talking about Armenia, to weaken Armenia as much as possible, to make it dependent country. Because if we are looking at the campaign of our, let's say, opposition during the snap parliamentary elections, I guess, they told that the only solution that they are seeing at this point is to join this United State or state unity model that is suggested by Russia, and this would be the only solution, the best solution for Armenia, to sacrifice our sovereignty and become part of Russia. And basically this is what Russia aims if we are talking only about Armenia. And there are too many other things to highlight how destructive Russia's role was. And as a civil society, we have also other concerns regarding this foreign agent law. The good thing is that our government currently is moving towards West, of course, but in here we have also many challenges because of the dependencies that we already have from Russia. So these are just a couple of examples to show what type of a role Russia has in these negotiation processes.
I want to add something interesting in this discussion, because I want to clarify the differences between Nagorno-Karabakh perspective and Armenian perspective, because in Soviet Union time, when we have to choose learn Russian or Azerbaijani, we choose Russian and we started think more Russian. So Nagorno-Karabakh people are very similar with Russian thinking, and Armenian people not, and they are more pro-European, and we are more pro-Russian. But after war, we open our eyes and see that this is not the way that we want to live. So now we have also so many difficulties, like Knarik mentioned, in negotiation processes, because as Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, we had other issues. But now we understand the differences and difficulties for Armenia that they have in these negotiation processes.
So I just wanted to thank to everyone who joined us today, and I hope to see you during our next events.
Take care, everyone.